Bring the heart.
It's time to get loud.
Let's go! Because this is Betfred Super League.
Bring it on.
Got me here. It took a big chunk out of me. Bleeding. It's bleeding. Oh no, it's bleeding. The thing just ripped me ear off. What do you think?
Hello, everyone, and welcome along to this week's edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, sponsored as always by our good friends at Betfred. Well, there's a packed edition of the show this week as we look back to a magical weekend in Newcastle and ahead to another round of the Super League fixtures this coming weekend. But first to the State of Origin decider, played in Brisbane on Wednesday morning our time between Queensland and New South Wales. Now, if you were with us last week, Stevo described what was to come as brutal. Stevo, it's not often you undersell anything, but I think this time you did. Brutal, blimey, what an understatement that is.
Yeah, it was expected. Everyone knew, perhaps everyone knew, apart from the New South Wales players. They should have tried to match the onslaught that came through them. But Queensland, it's difficult to win up in Brisbane. But the way they started, I mean, they lost two players within the first 5 minutes to head injuries, and they couldn't get back on. So Queensland were down two players from the bench. It was a remarkable win by the Queenslanders. It got my juices flowing until they started throwing punches, and I thought, maybe... I just thought for a moment, I would have loved to be playing again. And then they threw a few punches and I sat back and said, no, I did the right thing years ago. Gave it up.
Well, I can imagine that. The thing is, in the first 3.5 minutes, as you say, there were three men taken from the field, two from Queensland, one from New South Wales. Cameron Murray was the first to go. And then at the start of the second half, there was a real punch-up, Stevo. It was like going back to the 1980s. Punches were being thrown, and Ashley Klein put the two perpetrators in the sin bin. Now, if that had been in Super League, they'd have been red-carded, and I'd imagine that next week at the disciplinary committee, they'd have been done for, 8 to 10 weeks. Why does it all change when we play State of Origin?
Because referees are often told by the people that pay their wages is that this is the ultimate in Australia. So don't spoil it. In other words, don't send them off. It'll put a bit of a damper on it. It's been happening for years and years and years. We've often been criticised in the UK of doing exactly the same when it comes to a Wembley final, a cup final. Don't send anybody off. Don't penalise them in the opening 15 minutes. It happens all the time. If you're being paid by the governing body, you will take notice. I'm sure that Klein did. I felt sorry for Burton because Burton was being hammered by Gagai while another Queenslander was hanging on to him. So it was open slaughter. And I was surprised that he joined him for 10 minutes in the sin bin. But look, Klein had to do something. But it didn't surprise me at all. There was no chance in my mind that they were going to be sent off. 10 minutes was sufficient. But it was brutal.
Oh, it was. It was so brutal. I mean, it should have had a little triangle at the bottom of the screen. As I say, all the commentators were saying this is the greatest game they've ever seen. It's a hark back to the days of the 80s when it was hey, lads, hey. Queensland now, I think I'm right in saying they've won 15 of 21 of these deciders, and the last 6 of the deciders held at the Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, they have now won. So you're right to say it is difficult to win north of the border.
It's only on 2 occasions where New South Wales, when it's been level, and whoever won on that ground picked up the trophy. And New South Wales have only ever done that twice since the inception of the state of origin. We mentioned it last week, didn't we? We said the situation was that the biff was on the cards, the return of the biff. All those people that keep calling for it, they would have enjoyed it. But the amazing thing is that the injuries were nothing to do with the biff. No. It was just unfortunate getting in awkwardly into a tackle, etc., and so forth. But it was brutal in as much that the impact was tremendous. The pace of the game, I loved every minute. As I say, that to me was one of the best that I've seen for a long, long time in the State of Origin series.
What do you think the English players watching here, the England internationals who are going to be taking part in the World Cup later this year, what do you think they are thinking right now? Because, I mean, I don't know whether these players can lift like that for a World Cup tournament. They should do, of course. But to me, it sent a shockwave through everything. You know, a lot of these players play for the islands, Fiji and Tonga, Samoa. They're all Pacific Island. A lot of them are Pacific Islanders as well as Australians. It's going to make for one hell of a World Cup, isn't it?
Well, we got the message through when the South Sea Islanders played a couple of weeks back. They laid down the gauntlet. They said it's not going to be easy. You know, don't think that this is just a New Zealand, Australia, and England competition, because it's not. These South Sea Islanders can play. You know, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, they've got a very, very good collection of people who are playing in Australia. And when you think about it, they laid down the gauntlet. And last night was another indication of what this World Cup is going to be like. I fear for the fact our first game, England, we play Samoa.
Yeah.
Now, we should win. But, as you say, watching that game, they don't need a coach to tell them what to expect. All they have to do is just rerun that game and say, this is the standard that we'll have to lift to.
Well, it was a magnificent match. The standard was incredibly high. And now let's look back to the Magic Weekend in Newcastle just last weekend. 62,154 people there over the 2 days. They enjoyed the summer heat that I'm pleased to say, Stevo, we are experiencing over here. I know you're still a bit damp underfoot. But, you know...
Damp. We're flooded all over the country.
Well... It's totally different here. We've got heat warnings out for this coming weekend when all the games are going to be played. But hey, the matches played at the weekend, I thought 3 crackers and I thought 3 okay games. The first one, Wakefield-Toulouse, a stunning second half fight back from Toulouse. The first time they've recorded back-to-back Super League wins. First time they've won out of France. They were 20 points to 4 down Toulouse at half-time, but David Fafita sin-binned right on the half-time hooter. And while he was off, Toulouse got 3 tries to turn it all around. Discipline cost Wakefield dearly, didn't it?
Oh, sure did. I mean, you know, with a lead like that, why on earth do you want to bother, 20 points to 4? Messing around at the play the ball area, hold him down, etc., and so forth. I mean, it was just not needed. But there was always sort of an indication that maybe things would change, because the French side, they're used to playing in hot conditions more than what the UK players are. So I thought that, but it might have been 20 points to 4. I thought, well, I don't think they'll be able to come back from that. But against a team that went down to 12 men and then went down to 11 men, it was always going to be on the cards. And what about the excitement now? Forget about the top of the table. It's all down now to Toulouse and Wakefield. Because Wakefield, they've got a stronger run-in than what Toulouse has. And Toulouse, I think they've got 2-3 games down in the south of France.
Yes, they have. The next 3 are all at home. They're on this run of form. Wakefield facing 3 of the top 6 coming up. Now, Wakefield are in a real relegation dogfight, aren't they?
Yeah, they sure are. And it's an amazing how things can change with all the announcement that they're going to get the ground fixed up and sorted out and bring it up to the proper standard, and yet they could be in the lower division.
It just doesn't bear thinking about. It really
no,
doesn't.
It's just ironic, isn't it, that things like that do it. But talking about David Fafita, his brother, Andrew Fafita, was interviewed a couple of days ago, and he indicated that he may not travel with Tonga for the World Cup. Now, this is a bit of a shock, and the reason why is he's been invited to be the best man at his best friend's wedding during the World Cup, and he may stand down. And he also indicated, he was asked the question, when are you going to retire? He said, I may even go over and play with my brother in the UK. It's a real shock for Tonga.
It's a real shock for Tonga. It's a real shock for me. Why, if he's about to retire in the NRL, does he think he would come over here and get a start in the Super League? That's the question that immediately has hit me while he just said those words. Why would he think that?
Well, you've only got to look back, Eddie, over the years. How many players that say are past their best down under? I might come for a little bit of a pension and play for a team in the UK. They've been doing it for years.
I know. I think it's disrespectful, but there you go. That's just my way of thinking.
I understand that, Eddie. I know you think it's disrespectful, but by the same token, they get so much money down here that they'll say, well, I'll get a bit of a bonus and go and play maybe a couple of years in the UK. You can't blame them. We keep saying it, don't we? It's not about the game anymore. It's about how much money I can earn.
Well, that's true. Look, the second game on Saturday, first day of the Magic Weekend, was Wigan against Saints. Now, this was a high-quality game, as you'd expect. Too many unforced errors, though, in the first half, mainly due to ferocious defence on both sides. But in the end, a fantastic second half and some wonderful, wonderful tries being scored by both sides. But then Saints coming up with Johnny Lomax's try, the match winner in the last 2 minutes. A fantastic advert for Super League this was.
Yeah, and I was pleased that they put that on as the second game, because we all knew that it was going to be a dogfight, the Wakefield Toulouse. And then we had what we call the main course. And it was outstanding. I thoroughly enjoyed that. I mean, Bevan French, is a great player. But Lomax, he just keeps coming up with the right plays, doesn't he?
Yes.
A lot of people don't seem to understand how important Lomax is to this St. Helens side. He may not have that wonderful ability to sort of sidestep 3 men and do all that sort of thing, but his linking qualities from the centre of the pitch to get the link out wide to the 3 quarters is outstanding. He's a great player, and I've often thought that he's been underrated. He is the key factor to St. Helens' success.
He is. He and people like James Roby. I thought Joe Batchelor was outstanding as well. Absolutely brilliant runs from him.
Yeah, it's all about the hard work, isn't it? I like this kid. He gives everything. He doesn't hold back with anything at all. And I think he's certainly he's going to be a player for the future as well.
Very much so. Third game on Saturday was Leeds against Castleford. Leeds wearing a special Rob Burrow commemorative kit led out by Rob's daughters, and they defeated Castleford for their first defeat in Newcastle for the Tigers. First ever defeat up there in the northeast of England. Now, both of these sides have got eyes on the top 6. In fact, everyone from 5 down to 10 think they can make the 6. That's where the race is on now, because Saints are 4 points clear at the top, and the top 4 are 6 points clear of the field.
Yeah, it's always going to be a battle in the mid-table, and I'm glad that it has turned around that way. Leeds, well, they were in a real slump, weren't they? New coach, injected new ideas, etc., and injected a lot more enthusiasm. I thought they played well. Castleford, far too many mistakes. You just can't control a game when you keep dropping the ball, missed tackles, etc., and so forth. And it didn't surprise me that they come, because a lot of these teams, they're struggling to have their best players on the field of play.
There's a lot of injuries about, aren't there? Huge amount of injuries and suspensions, to be fair, but a load of injuries just now.
It's that time of year, I suppose, and maybe the weather's got something to do with it as well, because hard grounds, it can play havoc on your knees, your back, etc. And when you get tackled on a hard ground, you're susceptible to especially shoulder injuries where you're getting slammed to the ground. The defences are very, very solid. We saw that, didn't we, in the Wigan Saints game? That defences are a priority now for most coaches.
Yes, and Huddersfield, they are the boomers, really, of 2022. They have cemented their place in the top 3. A good win over Salford, Ian Watson's old club, of course. And Ian Watson himself, he signed a contract extension until 2026 for Huddersfield prior to the game. So he's going to be around for a long, long time. What a great move this is by Ken Davey and company.
Is it ever? A lot of clubs, perhaps, they shy away from offering a coach a long-term agreement. They'll do it for players, but it's an amazing thing that long-term contracts for coaches, not so much in the UK. They do it down here, down under, because they realise the ability of the coach. And let's face it, he has turned Huddersfield around. He's a very, very good coach. He's gone through the system. They always say, you start at the bottom and then finish up at the top. Well, there's a wonderful example. Huddersfield are going to be a strong team for quite some time.
Indeed so. And this weekend, they face St Helens at the Totally Wicked Stadium on Friday night. So that is a massive, massive test for their ambitions, isn't it?
Sure is. And St Helens realises that it won't be easy. He's got a good squad. He's got them working hard. But you'd have to say that Saints would start favourites. And the way that Saints are playing, they dig deep. They've also got a very solid pack, but their defence is solid as well. It'll be interesting because, as you say, it'll lay down the pattern as to the way that Huddersfield are going. I think it'll be a close game.
It will indeed. And who was it who once said, Stevo, never, ever write off the Saints? Oh, look, I don't want to blow my own trumpet.
Trumpet? You've got the saxophone, the tuba, you name it. And why not? Because, Eddie, I hate to say this,
steady.
You were correct.
Well,
you could never write them off. They had this wonderful ability, didn't they, for many, many years. Oh, it looks as though they're going to lose, and all of a sudden, with seconds to go, someone will pile over and win the game. As it happened. It happened with Lomax, yet again.
Indeed.
It's as though that they've got this magic circle. They said, we play for 80 minutes, we don't let down, we go for the full 80 minutes. And that's what they do. That's confidence for you.
Very much so. And you've got to be right once in your life, I suppose.
And talking of Saints, Eddie.
Yeah.
Look, Wayne Bennett is very, very confident, and the rumours are that he will be in charge for the first 2 years, and that Christian Wolff will join the Dolphins in 2023 or 2024.
This is the new NRL club that's coming up in Queensland.
Yeah, it looks like Wayne Bennett will take charge, which he has done anyway. But is in his 70s, a bit like Tim Sheens, who's also rumoured now to go back to coaching because the West Tigers are in such a bit of a mess. He's 72, my old mate Tim. I rang him, well, I couldn't get through to him, so I sent him a message and I said, "You're not going to start coaching at your age." And and you look at Wayne Bennett, he's in his 70s, he's still a good coach. And I tell you what, Tim Sheens, if there's one man that can turn West Tigers around, it's Tim Boy. Yeah, he's a good coach, is Sheensy. But isn't it amazing that the rumours are very, very strong that Christian Wolff has already made arrangements to take over from Wayne Bennett for the new club, the Dolphins.
Wow. Well, that hasn't been, it's been rumoured over here, but it hasn't been confirmed. And we know how close your ear is to the ground in Australia.
Well, let's not boast about it, Eddie. This is also rumours.
I know.
But evidently Bennett has been discussing it and saying they put the question to him and he said it would probably be a good choice. He's a crafty fella, is Bennett. Doesn't say much. Not to us, not to the public.
No,
but
not to the media.
He says a lot to his players.
Absolutely, he does. And fair play to you, because you were the man who tipped and said it to us on this podcast last year that Steve Price was on his way out of the Warrington door way before that was confirmed. So I take it that you are talking not balderdash for a change, but you are talking the truth.
Maybe I was just lucky on that situation, eh?
You've got a few good contacts. Look, talking of Warrington, as we were, and Catalan, they played the second match last Sunday. Now, Catalan, they had several key men absent. They couldn't hold on to Warrington, who probably produced their best win of the season, as did George Williams. You can suddenly see, can't you, the fruits of Darryl Power's labours starting to come good at last.
You know, Darryl Powell is a pretty smart cookie as well. You look over this season, Warrington have shifted a few players. See you later. We're not signing you on for another season, etc. Is gone for young players. And it was the younger players that got Warrington home against Catalan. I know that Catalan had a few injuries, but, you know, Powell is taking is chancing his arm on the fact that he'll go for youth rather than the older players. And he knew that he had to not wipe the board clean, but make it a little bit more available for other talent to come through. And I was impressed by the youngsters that he sent out there. They played as a good team.
They did. And this Matty Nicholson, who we discussed last week, controversially, some would say they pinched him from Wigan's academy. What an impressive debut he had. And he scored a try as well. Shall I be the first to say it, Stevo? 2023, Warrington's year.
Hang on, let me take a deep breath here. Look, I think next season they will be contenders for the top four. That's how I feel. It takes a while for a coach to settle in. Look, 6 months ago, they were saying that Powell's no good.
Yes.
He can't coach. They haven't got the right system. It's this, that, and the other. And look, when you get rid of former stars, and they go to other clubs, etc., and so forth, and you're clearing the decks and bringing in young kids, the players that are left, experienced, they think to themselves, hang on, I better start pulling my socks up here. I better start getting involved in this. And you did mention one player there with full experience that played out of his skin, because all around him was youth.
That's right. And they had to do without Gareth Widdop. He scored that try, a brave try, considering he dislocated his shoulder in the very first couple of minutes. He's now counted out for the rest of this season, and indeed counted out of Warrington, because he has completed his move to Castleford. He'll be there in 2023 at the Jungle. So if it is Warrington's year in 2023, it won't be Gareth Widdop's year with Warrington in 2023.
Well, as I say, we've just mentioned the fact, they're clearing the decks. Powell's he's a good cookie as far as I'm concerned. But isn't it amazing? As we said, a few months ago, get rid of Powell is no good. Can't get the players motivated. He has his own way of motivation, and that's if you don't come up to scratch, you're gone.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea either.
No, and a few of them have already seen the door, and more to come, I think. Now, look, after starting Saturday so brightly and ticking along nicely with the matches that we've just been talking about, arguably they did save the best for last. The whole derby was an absolute thriller. The 240th meeting, Danny Maguire's first as the head coach. So close this. 14-all at half-time. But then Hull's short-term loan signings caught the eye. Ellis Longstaff, Jack Walker, Josh Sim. They played a huge part in the Black and White's win, didn't they?
They certainly did. And I felt sorry for Old Kingston Rovers, because I thought one of the tries, which perhaps would have got them the win underneath the sticks, was disallowed. I thought he got enough pressure down on the ball, but that was only my opinion. And it seemed to just take it away. You could tell by Danny Maguire's face that he knew that if that had been given, perhaps Hull couldn't have come back.
Yeah.
And I mean, this Mikey Lewis, to score a hat-trick and be on the losing side, that's very, very difficult to take. This kid is exceptional. I would not be surprised if he makes the England squad for the World Cup. It's a big ask. But
it's a big call.
Why not?
That's a big call.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. He's light on his feet. He's cocky. He's confident. He had a fantastic match.
And that's what we need if you're going to play, against New Zealand, Australia, Tonga, Samoa. We need someone who's got that ability. And I've got to be honest with you, I don't think we have that many playing in England that can produce that sort of attack. That's the sort of thing that we need to beat these top sides. So I'm making a big suggestion. He'll get selected in the England World Cup squad. I'd pick him.
So have you got the Mikey Lewis for England badges, just like I've got the Lee Breers for Britain badges now? Is that...
Well, you could say that, but listen, did you make any money out of those badges?
No. I keep telling you, I've got 3,000 of them in a box in the garage. Why is it, Stevo, that at the end of Magic Weekend, it always seems to be that they save the controversy before the final moments? Because you've referenced the Elliot Minchella try or no try for Rovers late on underneath the post that would have probably won the match. The video ref said he'd lost the ball in a challenge by Longstaff in the act of scoring under the post. I don't think the pictures were 100% conclusive. I didn't think so either.
No, but that's how it goes, doesn't it? You could tell Danny Maguire's face. What? He hasn't given it?
I know.
He could not believe it. It was a great game. And, red and white, black and whites, they never let us down, do they?
No, they don't.
There have been times where, the black and whites have been far superior, and yet they go and play their neighbours and get absolutely hammered. To me, it resembles the same sort of thing with Queensland and New South Wales. It doesn't matter what your position is or that you were the favourites or whatever. When it comes to these derbies, especially the whole derby, you can expect an upset.
Well, talking of upsets, and I think we ought to have a little swish here at our old mate John Wells. Some of the man of the match decisions that he made over the weekend, I was scratching my head. particularly the whole derby, the last one. Longstaff, he scored 2 tries. He's never scored in 14 matches for Warrington previously. He's on loan at the Black and Whites. He scored 2 tries. He saved a try underneath the post, but he didn't get the man of the match. I mean, what more can you do? I know Jack Walker had a decent game, and there was 1 or 2 others that, I thought, well, why is he giving him that, the man of the match? But I suppose beauty is in the eye of the beholder, eh, Stevo?
Of course. Listen, Eddie, never trust a former winger. They're out. Listen, they're out wide, and sometimes they don't seem to see the game.
Well,
listen. It's happened to us over the years when we were both working at Sky TV, and we used to have guest people to pick the man of the match. And I used to scratch my head. And look, when I was given the opportunity to the man of the match, I'd guarantee that within 5 minutes of the game finishing, people would come up to me and say, "How on earth have you given that?
I know.
Where on earth have you plucked that out of?" And all that sort of thing. As you say, it's in the eye of the beholder.
Indeed.
Though I must say, talking of John Wells, I'm a little bit confused about these stats that keep coming up. 24,000 meters or something over the last. I'm sorry. I know I'm getting old, but I just cannot recognise what this has to do with the game itself. I'm getting old, Eddie. I know, but
yeah, well, we both are. But I mean, that was all over the State of Origin as well. The decider. I mean, we never saw the graphic. We never saw the actual figures on the screen. But Andrew Johns kept referring to, whatever it was. I don't know, 31 meters a second or something, or 31 meters a minute, or they've hit this and they've hit that, and they all have these stats now. They all have these statistics from the GPS systems that they carry around on the back of their shirts. Do you know what I'd like to see on that? You know what I'd like to see? When somebody is taking a conversion attempt at goal after a try, what the kicker's heart rate is. If it is a vital kick, I bet it's doing 50 to the dozen his heart. But of course, we don't find those sort of things out, do we?
That's not a bad suggestion, Eddie. You've surprised me. You surprised me. For a man like myself, I was never too sort of interested in regards of how many. To me, how many tackles you've done is something that is vital. So that is a good stat. But it completely goes above my head. 43,000 yards or meters or whatever, and he could run the 100 meters in 11.6. It's beyond me. But it just indicates that you and I are getting past it. We're old. Yeah. Those two old fogies. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there saying, what are they still doing something on rugby league? Both of them know nothing.
Correct.
We don't. And there'll be a heck of a big percentage that are probably right.
Talking of statistics, I remember turning up to matches with you, and we turned up at the old Knowsley Row ground, or we went to Headingley, and the first thing you said to me when I saw you in the car park, who's playing?
I think you may be stretching the imagination on that, but
I think you were talking about who's playing in the teams, the 13 men and the 4 subs. I really think you didn't know it was at St Helens and Leeds.
Of course.
Look, before we go, some great news has come in the past 24 hours. The one and only Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House of Commons, he is going to succeed Claire Balding as the RFL President at the end of this year and into 2023. Good on him, Lindsay. He's a great bloke. We know him personally. And I think he'll be a magnificent president for our game.
So Lindsay Hoyle, steeped. Rugby league runs through his veins. Simple as that. And congratulations. In fact, if I see you, Lindsay, I'll buy you a drink.
Wow, hang on. That is a massive call. He's a Warrington fan, Stevo. He also served as chairman of Chorley Borough. He's a Warrington fan because, of course, his dad is vastly associated with the Warrington Wolves. Lord Doug Hoyle, he was the man who took Sir Lindsay to the game in the first place. And, well, it's fantastic. It's fantastic that Lindsay is going to be the president of the RFL. I think we've come to the end of this week's podcast. Any other hot gossip from Australia? We're hearing that they're going to pinch Christian Wolf from us, that Tim Sheens is going back probably to coach the West Tigers. We know what's happened in the State of Origin, of course. Queensland are celebrating. What else? Anything else or nothing?
Regarding to the State of Origin, they have signed a new contract, a TV contract, and it looks as though that the NRL are looking at ways of not putting too much pressure on the players due to the fact that the State of Origin interferes with the season. Now, remember, with the pandemic, they played all 3 games after the season had finished. And there is pretty strong talk about the TV influence ensuring that perhaps the 3 games will be played after the grand final on a regular basis. It's not been confirmed, but that is one of the suggestions. The other suggestion is perhaps that they have a fortnight's gap between each individual 1, 2, 3 State of Origins. So it's up for consideration, mainly due to players' welfare. A lot of these players, perhaps after the great game on Wednesday, that they'll back up and play for their clubs. And they're a little bit concerned that it could be dangerous.
I don't blame them one bit for worrying about player welfare. That's laudable. If they're going to play the 3 games, Stevo, at the end of the season, after the grand final in successive weeks, couldn't that be the death knell of International Rugby League in Australia?
It could be, Eddie, but also it could be played perhaps before the start of the season. I'm talking about any internationals. It's something that perhaps could be a bit of a problem. And let's face it, if the TV company, if they want to say, well, we want to move it, I don't think the NRL would have enough power to say no.
No, because that would be a deal worth millions and millions of Aussie dollars, wouldn't it?
Of course. It's and also up for discussion is whether the female rugby league competition, would the clubs make the females full-time professionals as well? That's also been circulating down here, and that just gives you some indication of how powerful over the past 5 years that the female game has come to prominence.
Men, women, children, they all enjoy the sport, and they hopefully enjoy this podcast as well. And we'll have another edition of Eddie and Stevo, the podcast, the best rugby league podcast around, at the same time next week, when we'll chew the cud again for 30 minutes. Always as ever, Stevo, a delight to talk to you from soggy Sydney, from heatwave Britain. Ta-ta.